So we are finally back from a small hiatus, and I think it was definitely needed. A lot of change since the last episode, but I think we have learned plenty since then. No matter how terrible the team plays, no matter how much false hope is crushed, no matter how many times the Mets embarrass themselves in historic fashion, you can always rely on one thing. Drew Smith will always be here. Mets Weekly Podcast number 26, 60 minutes of brutal honesty for the first time in weeks begins now. Now, as per usual, make sure to subscribe to the Mets Weekly channel for content throughout the week, including live streams and other videos that are posted as well, alongside with this very podcast that premieres every week right here on this very YouTube channel and is available on all of your major audio listening platforms above my head on the screen. Follow us on Twitter, TikTok, all of our individual links for all three of us, they're also in the description. It has been a while since we have sat down and done an episode like this. At the current moment that we are recording it, we don't know if they're going to win tonight, but the Nationals just won. That means technically the Mets are right now in last place. For the rest of this season, this is going to be some brutal baseball.
Brutal is the right word to describe it. Totally unwatchable right now. But what I like is that they're thinking more so in the long term. I mean, we talked about it a lot going into the trade deadline. Are they going to try to make a push for it? Are they going to be in sale mode? And I think it is very obvious what mode they're in right now. I mean, they're focused on the bigger picture right now, which I'm good with at this point because so much damage has been done really in one off season. I mean, going so far over the luxury tax threshold, we saw the repercussions, particularly the draft penalties and things of that nature. So for them to really have a new approach, more this long-term outlook, trading for young pieces, tanking to get better draft picks and not have them be pushed back, getting those good lottery odds and things like that. It's tough to watch as a fan, but at least you know that they're losing with a purpose, that, they're losing, but hopefully a few years from now, if they can actually draft the right players and develop the right players, that it'll be worth it. Right now, it's very tough to go through, but I do have very slight optimism that it will be worth it once we have a sustainable winner. I mean, that's what we're really looking for. I'm so tired of the one-offs. They make the playoffs 1 year or maybe 2 years in a row, get bounced on the first round, and then you don't see the playoffs for another 5 to 10 years. I want the Mets to be a team where they have a bunch of young talent and they're in the playoffs year after year after year. So if they could do that by getting these young pieces all over the field, that's what they really need to work on. So they're making small steps towards that. We'll see if it pays off.
Tanking all the way, and it'll be all worth it when we get Jamarcus Russell.
It's roll the tanks. Like, that's just the line of the rest of the team. Roll them. I don't care. Get McGill up here, Peterson every day, shut Senga down in a few weeks. Don't let him, get to a decent amount and then shut him down, set him, get ready for next year because he's the only piece in that rotation. But they did the right thing compared to the other teams. The Yankees stay put and you see where they're at. The Angels were in the same situation and they bought. And look how fucking stupid they look. They realize we're not good enough. Blow it the hell up. And if you're not going to be a part of the team, when Franklin is touching 300, then, you're not going to be, you're not valuable. And the fact that they listened to another, some bigger pieces, obviously they didn't trade them, but they at least listened, was interesting. Cohen said he wants to build like the Dodgers. This is kind of a similar type, which I wanted to make a video about this. Maybe I'll do it in the offseason. The Mets aren't really following that Dodgers blueprint, but it's kind of like Preller-Palooza, where that first year he went nuts, traded for a cornerstone at Matt Kemp, equaling the Lindor trade, spending a shit ton of money. It doesn't work. He blows it up to build that second core, which, again, hasn't been sustainable, but again, superstar team.
I've been watching half. I'd just like to see the young players. It's about it. But obviously I'm barely paying attention to the TV because I just know it's just going to be an absolute torture. This is kind of what really expected. We've talked about this since day one of what the problems were with this team, of how top heavy it was, of how old it was, and it backfired. You had a near $400 million payroll, and they didn't perform, and they're too old. I mean, that's what happens. They traded off those pieces. They probably should have traded a little bit more, but they got what they got. What I do like about this certain ownership, what I liked about Steve Cohen when he comes into his press conference, he said, if this team is in the same position that it was at the trade deadline, I'm not buying, I'm not adding to this team, and we're moving pieces. The reason is because one of my main things with front offices in sports is I don't like to be lied to. And I was not lied to. This was the best that they could do in the current situation. It was a perfect pivot. Billy Epler's a better seller than he is a buyer. Overall, let's actually get into this trade deadline. So basically, unless you've been living under a rock, the Mets have pretty much planted the white flag onto Citi Field soil at the trade deadline this year. In this sell-off, the Mets have been offloading expiring contracts and aging veterans with expressed intent to load up the farm system. So let's do a quick recap of all these moves that were made. Eduardo Escobar traded to the Angels for pitching prospects Coleman Crowe and Landon Marchessault, and the Mets will be covering the remainder of Escobar's 2023 salary. David Robertson was traded to the Marlins for infield prospect Marco Vargas and catcher Ronald Hernandez. Mark Canha traded to the Brewers for pitching prospect Justin Jarvis, with the Mets paying off the remainder of his 2023 salary down to the league minimum. Tommy Pham was traded to the Diamondbacks for infield prospect Jeremy Rodriguez. Dominic Leone was traded to the Angels for super utility prospect Jeremiah Jackson. And then, of course, the big ones. Max Scherzer traded to the Rangers for infield prospect Luis Angel Acuna, covering $35 million of the remaining money, with Scherzer opting into his 2024 $43 million player option. And of course, Justin Verlander traded to the Astros for outfield prospects Drew Gilbert and Ryan Clifford, with the Mets covering $54 million of remaining money for the next 2 years. Coming into 2023 with a near $400 million payroll, the Mets end this year paying more than $150 million of retained salaries, setting them below the fourth CBT threshold for 2024, and also regaining 10 slots for next year's July draft. When asked about the Mets deadline, Mets GM Billy Epler said that this is not a rebuild, it's not a fire sale, it's a repurposing of Steve Cohen's funds. The three of us have not sat down and talked about what went on in this trade deadline, but I did go live with a couple of other Mets podcasters during the last hours of the trade deadline as well. A few videos, I did my recap on it, what I thought about it. So I want to hear everything that you guys thought. What did you like? What did you dislike?
I can't shit on Epler completely for once, which is surprising. He flipped Dominic Leone for a quality prospect, which, where the hell did that come from? I'm literally sitting in the ballpark, and I'm looking at the pitchers, and I'm like, okay, there's Raley, there's Acevedo, which were rumored. You know, the hitters came out, and I'm like, who the fuck's Dominic Leone? Like, he wasn't out in BP. The trade deadline was literally right when the Mets were taking BP. I'm like, and I literally get the notification from Nightingale or whoever it was. It was either Murray or him that said they moved him. And I'm like, did someone wanted him? And the Angels gave up an actual prospect, which, again, Jackson's already homered a few times in the Mets system. But again, an actual asset for Dominic Leone. Holy shit, hell has frozen over. I didn't love the Robertson return. Again, I don't like 17-year-olds. Again, I've said it in our video coming out after this about we rank our top 10 prospects. You know, with a guy for prospects, I like a little more, AA guys, because we know what the hell he is. With 17-year-olds, you don't know what the hell they are. And does Vargas look like he could be a possible starting second baseman? Sure. Which, again, hopefully he's a trade chip where it's like we don't never see him play higher than Binghamton. And I'd probably make that bet. Canha was, again, kind of in the same camp with Leone, a little more valuable than Leone. And to get another quality stretch depth arm, I'm fine with that. Pham, again, going with these 16-year-old shortstop. I'm not one of these guys who's, because it's another shortstop. Like, I don't give a shit about the position. They play everywhere. The best players who plays. At 16-year-olds, best player plays shortstop, high school, so stop complaining. And then you get to the big ones. The Astros were my least favorite of the three potential Verlander spots. Obviously, I had my hopes and dreams on Heston Kjerstad in Baltimore, but when Houston was up, Clifford seems to be just a gem. Gilbert, we'll see what happens with him. And then the Scherzer deal, I just wanted to offload him. So if we would have just eaten the money to get anything and to get maybe Acuna, but to get Acuna for a guy that we would have shipped out of here for nothing, to get out of not having a pitch every day for the Mets, yes, we had to eat a ton of money. But again, with Steve Cohen, that's the benefit. You can eat the money, and it doesn't matter of like, oh, this isn't going to hold back. Obviously, he's not going to spend next year, nor should he. Find some pieces kind of do the Cubs method, maybe in the offseason, find a couple of 1-year guys or 1+1s to just flip at the deadline and continue to replenish the farm. But from where we were at, I can't bash Epler. Could he have done better? Yeah, if Verlander went to Baltimore and you said we got Heston Kjerstad and Dylan Beavers and Kobe Mayo, I'd be going nuts. But, Verlander, both guys having full no trades and getting quality prospects for him, I can't bash him. And I know we're not big fans. I'm not a big fan of Billy Epler, but I can't be mad at what he did in the situation he was given. He did a pretty good job.
I echo a lot of what Andrew said about all the deals that the Mets made. I will say that I was disappointed based off my expectations for Robertson and Pham. I thought that based off of the rumors and rumblings that we were seeing from the reporters, I thought we got a little more because there was this belief that Robertson was one of the best relief pitchers on the market and Tommy Pham was one of the best bats on the market. So I thought that as those are two premier things that contenders are looking for with trades, that they would have had at least a little bit of a bidding war with one or maybe both of them, so where they could have got something better. I think that when you look at what they got in some of the other deals, particularly like Dominic Leone, for example, the fact that the Mets, you look at the disparity in talent between Robertson and Leone, the disparity in prospects did not match that. So that's where I'm kind of disappointed in that sense. And then the real miss I thought was if they were able to move Leone, how are you not able to move Acevedo? That's the one that I'm really like, I am not looking forward to a second year of him, another year older and, more susceptible to injury and money that we don't really need to spend to someone when we're already so much over the tax. We could use other areas. So I'm not crazy about that. Obviously, I wanted Narvaez to the Yankees. I just want him off the team. I think that it's $10 million for a waste. I think that it's like James McCann all over again. It is a waste of $10 million right now on this team. So I would like to see him get moved to some extent. They couldn't pull that off. But I really, out of all the trades, the one that I'm really the most excited about is the Astros trade. I love that the Mets got some outfielders who are slightly developed already because it's something that we've talked about. I talked about a whole bunch. You knew that once Mark Cannon's deal was up, and once Starling Marte's deal is up, even now, but the way he's been playing, maybe we'll get to that later, and all the things going on with Starling Marte, the Mets were going to need outfielders. They were going to need young outfielders for years to come, and you could draft all the shortstops you want to. Maybe some of them are going to move to the outfield. We'll see. I mean, we already have the Ronnie Mauricio experiment going on. We'll get to him later, too, of him trying some different positions. I wanted guys who were naturally outfielders, not 17 years old, and for Houston to give up some of their very best pieces for a guy that, to be honest, he's not the Verlander that the Astros had last year, and he's got another year on the deal. So to me, I was pleasantly surprised with the return that the Mets got for Justin Verlander, and I'm just very excited about it. I can't wait to see these outfielders. I mean, they're already getting things done in the minor leagues, so I'm really looking forward to them being on the major league team because I didn't want it to be a revolving door of, okay, we signed another, Mark Cannon caliber outfielder for a couple of years, and now we need to find another outfielder and need to find another one. Like, again, if you're building a sustainable winner, you need long-term pieces that are all around the field. So them finally getting some outfielders, I'm really happy about. And then, as far as the Scherzer trade, like Andrew said, there were some other pieces from Texas that maybe were a safer bet. There were some rumors about guys that maybe could become to the Mets that we were all pretty excited about. My only thing with Acuna, and it goes to any player that is under 5'10", where's the power going to come from? I mean, there's only one Jose Altuve. That's the one thing that concerns me. He could swing like Ronald all he wants, but there's only one Ronald Acuna Jr. I mean, if he's at least 80% of Ronald, I'll be thrilled. But I thought that was more of a home run pick as far as like you're shooting long for what you're trying to get. I thought it was a little bit of a risky selection, in my opinion, as far as what Texas had to offer. But we'll see if it pays off. I mean, you do have to take some risk with some of these prospects. But to me, it's just not good business practice when you're taking guys under 5'10". I mean, we already have Jet Williams on the way, who's another very shortstop. So it's like, how many more little guys you want to have when you know that this is a team that struggles for power? How many more little dudes are we going to have out there? And I'll say it as a short person myself, but you can only have so many of them. Eventually, we got to get some big fellas in there to hit big home runs. But we'll see what happens. I hope I'm wrong. I hope Acuna does turn out to be almost as good as his brother, but we'll see what happens. seasons.
Pretty much did my full-on recap of the video. You guys can go check that out if you are listening or watching. It's on our channel of just basically recapping the entire trade deadline. If I were to just go real quick, I mean, my top three of guys, I would say it's Clifford, number one, definitely my favorite one. I would say Jeremiah Jackson was a huge steal for the value they got for Dominic Leone. And then I also do like Justin Jarvis. I think that he probably could be solid. Drew Gilbert's okay. I think that he could give a lot of value to a major league roster, but I just don't see him as a possible star. Luis Angel Acuna, I just feel like it's a name on top of a name because of his brother, but you know what? Maybe he will show out with his athleticism as an overall player. This was probably the best that you probably could have gotten for most of these guys. I mean, the David Robertson trade, I wasn't happy with the return, but it's mainly just because he's a rental. So getting two pieces back for a rental, there you go. He's 38 years old as well. So I think that if the Mets had these guys at younger stages of their career, they probably would have gotten something better back for them if they were in the same position. This is what Steve Cohen said. He said that he's not going to add anyone to this team if they were not going to be performing and they were in the same position as they were during that press conference. And that's what he did right here. This is what happens when a near $400 million payroll team plays like shit. The nukes come out. I mean, let's be real for a second. This team wasn't playing well at all. It's just right now, it's showing how top heavy this roster was when, Alonso's not doing anything or Lindor's not doing anything. Nimmo, he's been struggling recently. When that's not happening, what do you got? Nothing. They relied on a lot of aging veterans, and it was just an approach that just did not work. Hopefully they realize that and they don't go into this next offseason signing a bunch of veterans once again. They said that they're going to field a competitive team. We know that there's still some rumors that have already been floating around of guys. We'll get to that in the offseason, but overall, I think they did what they needed to do. It sucks that it took so long for them to realize that this was not going to work. Water under the bridge at this point. So now let's get to the young guys. First thing that I want to talk about is Brett Baty. Now, after struggling for a majority of the year, the Mets have optioned third base prospect Brett Baty down to AAA Syracuse. This season, the 23-year-old third baseman is slashing .216, .289, .331 with 7 home runs, 27 RBIs, and a 77 WRC plus in 311 plate appearances. Mets manager Buck Showalter expressed the demotion as just a little timeout, kind of a take a breath mentally, emotionally. Just let him work on some things without the day-to-day. Along with the offensive struggles, Baty has also taken that to the field as well with a negative 4.1 defensive run value and a negative 8 defensive run save in 647.1 innings at third base.
We saw what happened last year. He got called up, and as we know, started off great in the big home run against the Atlanta Braves. And then, we had the whole thing with him and Alvarez getting sent down to start off the year and then getting called back up. It worked really well for Francisco Alvarez, hit a ton of home runs. He's here to stay, not getting sent back down. But for Brett Baty, I think that now they're in a mode where they're rebuilding, they're tanking and things like that. And for him to not be a part of that on the Major League roster on an everyday basis is kind of surprising to me. And then the fact that he goes back to minor leagues and all of a sudden is hitting home runs again is just very confusing. I mean, you could talk about the hitting coach, this, that, and the other, but to me, eventually something has to be said to the mental makeup. Are you cut out for this? And now we were of the belief that, okay, third base is going to be taken care of for the future. Once again, we're not 100% sure if the Mets are solid at third base. And that's a position, we talked about all different graveyards that the Mets have had over the year. We've talked about catcher, we've talked about center field. Ever since David Wright, there's been a third base graveyard. And I don't want that to continue and start all over again. So the Mets, this is something that I think is going to be one of the most important decisions to be made in the offseason. Are you going to trust Brett Baty, or are you going to get a big-time third baseman, or are you going to go the Escobar route of a veteran to battle Brett Baty again? I mean, I'm very curious to see what the Mets decide to do. Are you going to have Mauricio play third? There's a lot of things that they've got to figure out there, because I think for him to get sent down tells you how the Mets feel about him right now. The confidence level is not high because, like I always say, if you want the players to develop, it needs to be on the major league level. That's what they're going to be facing. Those are the adjustments they need to make. Those are the reps that they have to do. And I think the thing about Brett Baty is that hit the ball on the ground a ton. We knew that was a flaw at one point in his, coming up in the minor leagues. Looked like he fixed it. All of a sudden, the ball's back on the ground again. And what concerns me about Brett Baty is that he doesn't have redeeming qualities. Not a good defensive third baseman, not good on the bases. So it's like, if he's not hitting the ball in the air or line drives, what is he really doing for you? He's not doing much. And so even if he does hit, okay, he's not a great third baseman. So I'm not of the belief that, oh my gosh, he has to be our third baseman at all. I'm like, listen, when they had the trade, they could have got a young pitcher for the Marlins, whether it was Edward Cabrera or just some kind of young arm for the Marlins, something they could use right now. I mean, we have always other prospects coming up. We could use young pitching. So if a young pitcher is on the move and you can get Brett Baty, a little swap, I'd really consider it. And then we've talked about Matt Chapman for years now. It's something that, once again, is something that has to be a serious discussion, because I think it's just been an overall very disappointing season. Because are we going to do the whole call him up, send him down, call him up, send him down thing again? You could only do that so many times. And again, you don't want to make matters worse, and you don't want to mess up Brett Baty, mental makeup even more than it already has. No more damage that's already been done. So it's been a disappointing season for him. I hope that he turns it around next year and that he is our third base for the future. Because like I was saying before, you want young, controllable players all around the field, like the way the Atlanta Braves do. I mean, that's what I want to see this Mets team have. But right now, the questions have to still be answered when it comes to Brett Baty.
This should be the end of the third base regime, and I think that's already started, because we saw the report that Ronnie's playing third majority of the time, or 2 days a night, 2 in third, 2 games at short, 2 games at second. Brett's going to become an outfielder at this point, because, like you said, defensively, yeah, there's a klutz. And for the team, it would make sense if now he becomes an outfielder. Let's say you go after a Chapman or pick. There really isn't any other great free agent third baseman out there. You got your Jaimer Candelario level guys, but that's really about it. If it's not Chapman, or if it's Ronnie, again, if you're going in the Ronnie or, maybe Baby Acuna, Ronnie, because then Acuna can play second, or Jeff McNeil, because I saw that was an idea now being float backed around. And it would kind of give you a bridge to a Ryan Clifford or the other, again, Acuna potentially moving to center, Nimble continuing to play left field now. Brett potentially in a corner, because like you said, the defense has been awful. And we kind of knew this eventually. The defense, we thought, if it's Alec Boehm, we'd take it, and then probably ends up in the outfield at some point. That was what we thought. We'd hope it wouldn't be, year 1.5. We would have hoped, year 4 or 5, then move him to shift him to the outfield full time. But yeah, he's not hitting for any type of power anymore. Again, the ground ball rate problems are back. And like I said, it's funny, as soon as you send him down, 2 homers. Like, he's already hitting back homers, and you can get the crappy, the hitting guru that he has now has been elevated from AA to AAA and got him to pull the ball more. I'm all about narratives, and this is a narrative that's going to go right to Carson's heart. And the Mets could have done it, 2.0 of this. You had a top prospect. This was in the outfield. You had a great show some promise first year. Second year sucked and got sent back down. You had a top prospect, got elevated. Why was this not a Mauricio for Baty swap like it was Conforto with Nimmo? I don't understand how that was possible, where you had a guy who can play third, play second again. If you want to put Jeffrey at third, try that experiment again. Like it didn't work when he was younger. Let's put the older version of Jeffrey at third base. And the fact that you could have given Mauricio a shot, let Brett just, there's no other top prospects. Just you in Syracuse. Nobody's really watching as Ronnie would be up. And all the attention will be back there to go and hit. But yeah, at this point, he's probably an outfielder. And again, the outfield depth, like we said, Canner's gone, Pham's gone. As of right now, the outfield is Starling Marte decides to stay healthy, which we don't know. That's not possible. Brandon Nimmo and DJ Stewart's a free agent. So it's either him and left, or Gilbert's not coming up. And there's no Cedrola. Is Cedrola still under team control? And again, it would kind of give a stopgap for, again, like a Drew Gilbert or, the guys in Binghamton take another jump, because the guys, there's nobody in Syracuse outfield wise. They just DFA'd out Abraham Almonte. So there's no AAA guys, and it would kind of see, can he play the outfield? Because we know third base is not the issue, and the offensive problems, the ground ball rates back. Hate to see it, but hey, at this point, Jeremy Barnes might just need to die and make that hitting guru, that guy, the head coach for the Mets, because Barnes ain't doing shit either. So, again, it's disappointing, but he was a dick in Kansas City, so, fuck him.
Here's the problem here. And when I look at Brett Baty and why I've been so upset with what I've seen from him is because out of all of the prospects that we have up here, this was supposed to be your advanced player. This was supposed to be your advanced hitter, 23 years old, older than the usual prospect. We wanted him to get the everyday third base job at the beginning of the year because Eduardo Escobar was brutal. He still is brutal while he is in LA right now because Escobar is not a good player. And then all of a sudden, when Escobar gets traded, Baty slips into the third base job every single day, gets the chance to play, and then performs like this. So all of a sudden, it seems like he needs Eduardo Escobar here in order to produce somehow. If that's the whole situation, then we're going to have a problem. First round pick. Everyone doesn't like to talk about draft stock. I do. It comes with expectation. He's been here. He's gotten 300 plate appearances this year. He got some plate appearances last year. We've seen a good enough sample of him, but we have seen a good enough sample of Brett Baty in order to make a judgment of what he looks like at the major league level. And what we've seen so far, it sucked. He has been so bad overall. This guy cannot pull a fucking baseball. His bat speed is terrible. He can't hit a high fastball. The low pitches, he can't even reach anymore. I don't know what the hell happened to this guy's bat speed that he was displaying in spring training. High profile velocity. Shit is gone right now. So I don't give a shit what the hell he does in AAA. It's like Frank just said, the way that he can develop as a major league player is play as a major league player. When he played as a major league player, he didn't do anything. He didn't take the job and run with it like Francisco Alvarez did. And I understand he's still young. There's still a ceiling here. He still can reach that potential, of course. But this whole ground ball thing, this has been a problem throughout his entire baseball career. High school, lower levels of the minor leagues. If he's homering in AAA, great. AAA pitching sucks. AAA pitching worse than our bullpen right now. The baseballs are so juiced. The arms are so washed. That's how bad AAA pitching is right now. They got to figure that out, obviously. That's a different story. And what I'm still seeing from this guy is, yeah, he pulled one homer, 80-mile-an-hour changeup, and then he goes to opposite field. Everything else goes to the opposite field as well. I don't understand how you think that you can be a successful hitter these days against high-profile velocity by swinging late. How can you do that? Please tell me how you can do that. If you can explain how you can just use the opposite field and be a great hitter, that's not going to work. And I understand a lot of scouts have talked about Brett Baty a lot and saying, well, pulling the ball is just not his thing. Well, that's not going to work. If he can't pull a baseball, then he is not going to be a successful player. You have a few anomalies in baseball, but I don't see him being one of those anomalies. Listen, I understand if he's not going to display that full power immediately. But with that bat speed, you should not be late on every fastball. And the guy doesn't use his lower half. He doesn't use his lower half at all. It's like Vogelbach. He's all arms. That's literally it. He's just all arms. They put a lot into thinking that Brett Baty can do something. We've seen a good enough sample, and he has not performed. I see nothing. I really see nothing. Overall, him as a defender, him as a hitter, I see nothing. I'm sorry. I just see nothing in Brett Baty. So now with Brett Baty in Syracuse, the Mets have now turned to Mark Vientos for an extended look at third base and DH, as the 24-year-old power frame hitter has started to get consistent playing time almost every day. Now, even though the results have yet to come, the underlying data has been promising while adjusted to a qualified major league sample. In 77 batted ball events, Mark Vientos currently sits in the 99th percentile in hard hit rate, the 98th percentile in exit velocity, the 96th percentile in max exit velocity, and the 97th percentile in barrel rate. In 116 plate appearances this season, Vientos only sits at just a 526 OPS with 2 homers and 4 extra base hits. We have now seen a little bit more of a sample of Mark Vientos. I don't know if it's too early to ask this question, but I'm going to ask it right now. Is Mark Vientos a legitimate MLB hitter?
For me, with Vientos, I'm still it remains to be seen category because I'm one of the guys. I'm much more results driven than batted balls data driven, because the reason why I say that, and I go maybe a one off, and it's actually a comparison you made, Carson, last year. J.D. Davis. How good were his batted ball numbers as a Met? Max Acevedo, oh my gosh, he's in the leaderboards with Yordan Alvarez and Aaron Judge, and then J.D. Davis. Like, what? You don't belong with these guys. I don't see Mark Vientos become J.D. Davis. High strikeout, ground ball, hits the ball hard, doesn't get any results. Doesn't mean anything to me. It remains to be seen. I need results. Batted ball is great. He has power. Great. We need that. So I'm hopeful. But to me, I'm still waiting. It's still early. You know, he still needs to get that full playing time. Let's see where we're at the end of the year. And again, it's in garbage time. It doesn't really matter. There's not much pressure on him when the games don't matter. And is he even trying? Are the Mets even trying? I mean, they're really battling out for those lottery odds. So it's hard to evaluate anybody right now because you don't know what the team's intention is. If they're told to be bad, like that's why Drew Smith's still pitching. I mean, he's perfect for this. And Vogelback swinging. I mean, if the ball hits you, swing. Perfect. I mean, we're tanking. That's what you're supposed to do. So it's very hard to know exactly what's going on with everybody when you are tanking. But for me, I need to see the results first.
He's Eric Campbell. He's got the same numbers as Eric Campbell. Hits the ball hard, shitty batting average, strikes out a ton. Cool. I want results. Yeah, he's had some great quality of contact, which is good to see. He's hitting the ball hard. When he does make contact, he'll strike it out a shit ton, which is what he is, what he's always been. But again, it's promising. Again, you want to use that word promising? Cool. We got again. Like Frank said, we're playing 4-18. Really, could this just be a Dom Smith 2020? Sure. He has all the peripherals. Oh, he has all this. It looks great. Except it doesn't have the results that 2020 Dom Smith did. He was actually a good hit, good batting average. He's hitting 190. So yeah, I don't really care about the Acevedos. If you hit him on you hit him. If he's not going over the fence, which he only has a couple homers, I don't really care. Like I don't care. It's a nice baseball savant page. Baseball players aren't made on websites. They're made of this thing called human flesh.
Let me argue these 2 points at the same time. Dominic Smith never had good underlying metrics. That dude just always sucked. J.D. Davis never pulled the ball. There's a main reason as to why he didn't have it. Now he's actually pulling the ball in San Francisco and getting actual good results. Go fucking figure. One thing I have been really impressed with Mark Vientos has definitely been he's lifting the ball better this second time around from coming back from AAA, which is good because is very vulnerable to that low pitch because he is a very lanky, very tall guy, and it's hard to go get it. But overall, the quality of contact has been good, and I can obviously say that right now he's a better hitter than Brett Baty. I can definitely say that. I've been definitely impressed as compared to what I've been expecting. I think he will be a legitimate MLB hitter eventually. Obviously, there's still a few things that he needs to tweak. We have seen a lot of adjustments that he made as compared to last year. His stance is a little bit more open. We're seeing him, be able to get on top of a lot more parts of the strike zone. So I think that just with playing time, he is going to get better, and we've seen a good quality of contact. We're seeing a good, high percentage of a lot of data that is really looked promising for him. And, he's definitely has shown that he is not overmatched to major league pitching. And that's something that I've definitely concerned myself about in the last 2 years about Mark Vientos, of him actually just being overmatched with a lot of whiffs in the strike zone, which we've seen quite a few of them. We haven't seen him walk that much, but personally, I don't give a shit about the walks. I just need good pitch selection while you're in the zone. And when the ball's in the zone, the guy's hitting it pretty hard. Obviously, we still need to see more. We still need to see more consistent playing time from him. And hopefully we do get that. But obviously the Mets being a tanking team right now, Daniel Vogelbach is going to get his plate appearances no matter what. Overall, I like what I'm seeing. Hopefully I can see it consistently. And it seems like he has continued to get better and better as he continues to get that experience. Since he made loud noise during spring training this year, Ronnie Mauricio has been the main subject of young talent call-ups while being the only piece of the Big Four yet to be called up for his major league debut. So now in mid-August, this subject of debate has continued over whether it's time for the Mets to call up the 22-year-old switch hitter. In AAA Syracuse, Mauricio is slashing 290, 340, 497 with a 102 WRC plus in 465 plate appearances. As a traditional shortstop and the block that it creates with Francisco Lindor, Mauricio has started to play other positions such as second base, third base, and left field with mixed results. When asked about the current state of a Mauricio call-up, Billy Epler has said that there are still things that the team needs to see before the anticipated promotion. So this has pretty much become a debate between Mets fans of what they like and what they dislike about Mauricio in AAA. Is Ronnie Mauricio ready? Is he ready for the major leagues?
For this team, sure. Because again, it doesn't matter. So even if he's ready or not, you've done it with the other two. Just do it with him. You did it with all of them. You called them up when some of them weren't ready. Just do it. The games mean nothing. It would make some watchability to get him up here. Because, nobody wants to watch Jonathan Awa Ooze and freaking Danny Mendick playing every day. Like, trust me, I watched that enough in Syracuse when everybody was down there. I don't need to watch them on the real team. They've already rushed the other two. I don't know why all of a sudden, this one. And this isn't even like the Alvarez. If this was Alvarez, okay. Because we made that clear. When Alvarez comes up here, he doesn't go back. We knew that was the gym, that was the piece. This is the third one. I don't understand why the other two, get them up. That was a last second throw, throw them up, get them up, to screw the development. Now Ronnie, in a year that they're tanking, they're like, nah, we gotta keep him hitting, AAA pitching. At this point, who really cares? There's a position open. Again, Jeff McNeil is playing outfield all the time now. So again, you're telling me Jonathan Abreu is a better major league hitter than Ronnie Mauricio? That's what they're telling you. And again, I broke the news about Abreu, but I don't need to see him. I don't want to see him ever again. Again, I hated him in spring training. Still don't hate the guy, but I saw enough in Syracuse. I don't need to see him in Queens. And at this point, there's nothing to lose. Give him the ABs in the big leagues, let him play every day, and be done. It means nothing. And hell, if he sucks, you're tanking anyway, so that helps your tank. So he strikes out 4 times like he's done in the minor leagues and shit done. He just goes up there whiffing and everything. Cool. You're trying to lose anyway. So it does not matter. If he comes up, hits a couple nukes, cool. Bring some excitement. But again, like I said, make the team watchable. If he sucks, he sucks. That's the plan of the team, is to suck the rest of the year. So it goes in the plan. Just get him up here at this point.
Frank, you ready?
I think he is. Because, like Andrew said, it's what else you have to lose at this point? The guy was hitting, home run after home run, a bunch of extra base hits in spring training. In spring training, yes, and during the minor league season all year long. And then I saw a report, I can't remember exactly where it was from, but it said about Ronnie Mauricio basically kind of just just hanging out in the minor leagues, where he's kind of just disinterested. He's not attached to it, because he's like, what am I doing here? He knows he doesn't belong there. I mean, the guy is just, it makes sense to me, because we see the numbers. He doesn't have the OPS that he did before. We're not seeing the highlights as much as we were before. And to me, it's like Andrew said, we have so many guys like Aruz and Rafael Ortega and Danny Mendick and all these guys that are just so bad. And it's like we said with Baty, see what he's got. The only way to develop in the major leagues is, this is the time. When you're facing a bunch of bums and the game doesn't matter, this is the time to give Ryan Mauricio major league reps. Not next year when you're actually trying to be competitive again and the games actually matter, and then he's struggling and there's extra pressure. Now is the time to get those reps in, not next year when it really matters. Now is the time where he can see some major league pitchers, make the adjustments he needs to make, so that when next year starts, he's already ready to go. He doesn't need to learn next year when you're actually trying to compete again. So they've butchered this the whole time, and they just continue to do it. And I don't see from them any signs that it's going to change. I don't feel any hope that it's going to change, that they are going to call him up. I feel like they're just going to leave him there. And it's just been very frustrating, because I want to see what the kid has. I think of all the prospects other than Alvarez, he's got the most upside. He's the guy that, to me, has the biggest ceiling, a lot of potential, and I just want to see what he's got, because I need to know, and they need to know. They need to know, kind of like Baty, are you a future piece? Are you going to be in the lineup day in, day out? Are you a trade candidate? All these questions that need to be answered, the only way to find out is by calling him up and seeing what he's got. So, I mean, what more do we need to wait for? It's like Andrew said, you're not trying to win games. If anything, you're trying to lose games. And if the guy is disinterested and getting very frustrated and like, what the heck do I have to do to get called up? What am I doing down here? Just call him up. I mean, it really, it's very frustrating. I don't know if they're trying to manipulate service time and stuff like that, but it's like, come on already. I mean, let's just see what the guy can do.
If a guy is hitting AAA pitching at a great quality of contact, the results pretty much don't matter. I mean, stats in the minor leagues are so fluctuated with how it is with the league averages and how bad the pitching can be and how amateur the pitching can be at times. Yes, he has a 102 bat right now. There's a main reason why I say that minor league stats do not matter, and we look for the raw tools. The raw tools are how we project how they can do things against major league pitching. They're called prospects. They're prospects. It's about tools. It's about the raw ability that they have and what they have shown with those tools. It's not about his batting average. It's not about his OPS. It's not about that. And that's the problem that I have with, as WRC Plus and OPS have started to be used a lot more, a lot of people use this thing as a full-on Bible stat when it should be used as a resource. The thing about WRC Plus, and we'll get a little nerdy here, it's about how outcomes are weighted as to the league's run value. It doesn't show skill. It's not predictive. It doesn't project anything. The components of it are actually more simple than people think they are. There's walks, there's singles, there's doubles, there's triples, there's home runs. They're weighted to the run value. It's the same thing as OPS, but weighted differently to actual league average run value. It doesn't show quality of contact. It does not show their ability to barrel up the baseball. It does not show any of that. It's not predictive whatsoever. It's a source that you use for a player's production. Just because someone is a 150 bat 1 year doesn't mean they're going to do it for the rest of their career. I'm not saying that a 102 WRC plus in AAA is great and fine, but overall, if you look at some of the data that you see from Ronnie Mauricio, max exit velo 116 miles an hour. His 95th percentile exit velocity, which is like the highest that he hits the ball at a consistent rate, is 111.6 miles an hour. The whiff rate is down. The O swing's a little bit up as compared to it. He pulls fly balls. At this point, what else does he have to do? He's already shown those tools, those elite tools at the highest minor league level. And we all know how bad AAA and how fluctuated AAA is these days. It's either the pitching doesn't exist, or the hitting doesn't exist, or it's just a bunch of wash players who suck. So what else does the guy have to do? There's nothing that he has to do at this point. And once again, we've already said it. Both of you have said it. What do you have to lose? Your playoff hopes? They have gone down the toilet 4 weeks ago. It's over. Let the guy come up here. If you can call yourself an analytics person, then look at the actual data. Don't just be looking at things that don't have the significance of what you think they do. If someone is a 102 bat, that doesn't mean they're a 102 bat forever. I think that if you are looking at underlying metrics for Ronnie Mauricio, this guy has been destroying the ball the entire freaking year. The only way that to find out if he's going to be a good major league hitter is for him to hit in the major leagues. So one of the Mets' few bright spots of the season has been Kodai Senga's rookie year. Now, after signing a 5-year, $75 million contract with the Mets in the offseason, the 30-year-old right-handed pitcher has been the Mets' best starter in 2023. Among NL starting pitchers, Senga is top 10 in earned run average, fielding independent pitching, strikeouts per 9, and wins above replacement, among other categories, pitching 116.2 innings pitched across 21 starts. Senga's signature ghost fork has dominated baseball all season with the highest whiff rate among any pitch in the game at 58.9%, with an opponent's OPS below 200 against right-handed hitters and left-handed hitters. I think we all know who's probably going to end up winning this award, that being Corbin Carroll of the Arizona Diamondbacks. What is his case for Rookie of the Year? Is there a possibility that maybe it goes to Kodai Senga, who has been one of the best pitchers in baseball this year?
Depending on how the voters feel about his teammate. Because the top two, obviously Corbin Carroll's had that shit locked up since May. Matt McClain's going to finish in second. So it's kind of a battle for third place. You've got Senga, you've got Alvarez. And if we've got casual voters, they're going to vote for Ellie De La Cruz because he has all the Twitter highlights. He's got a chance to be in the top 5. I think that's pretty a lock. He'll be in the top 5. Top 3, maybe. Again, depends how the voters are going to go because we know the BBWA voters. They're pretty fucking stupid. Do I want them in the top 3? Yeah, because I want some additional draft picks for comp picks. Yeah, I was fantasizing, having Senga and Alvarez both in the top 3, getting a couple of comp picks. Cool, making me 5th or 6th. But say, free draft picks are free draft picks. But like I said, Corbin Carroll's number 1. McClain's 2. He has the case. He's one of the better pitchers in the National League, but now he's starting to go deeper into games, which that was a concern everyone had in April. He's consistently going 6-7 innings, which you like to see. Again, the Ghost Fork has been as advertised, so exceeded expectations. We all thought, we didn't know what the hell to expect. He was getting coming from Japan, different ball. We didn't know. We had the Japan highlights, but nobody actually watched this guy pitch, so we didn't know what to get. And what we've gotten, it's been great. As a rookie season, it's been great. He looks to be a building block in that rotation. Rookie of the Year? Probably not. But again, as a rookie, coming from a different country and learning a whole new culture and pitching in the major leagues, it's definitely been impressive.
For Senga, like Andrew said, Corbin Carroll is the leading candidate for the Rookie of the Year. But in my opinion, I think that as a pitcher, I feel like it's a hard award to win. I feel like that has become one of those awards, kind of like in football, where it's an offensive player's award to win. When was the last time a pitcher got Rookie of the Year?
Jake.
Well, Jake, which year?
2014.
All right, so again, look how far back you have to go. You're looking almost a decade since the guy won the award. So, and usually it's more of I think that there's actually a better chance he finishes for a Cy Young finalist than he finishes for Rookie of the Year finalist, honestly, because McClain's been good. Yeah. Alvarez, if he gets another hot streak, because Alvarez hits them in bunches. That's the one thing. I know we're talking about Senga, but we're talking Rookie of the Year. Alvarez hits them in bunches. He can have a week where it's 7, and all of a sudden he's hovering near 30. He has a better chance of being a finalist for that. So for me, I think going into the start against the Braves, he was around 3 or 4 in the ERA leaderboard. And what I really like the most about Senga is the improvements throughout the season. And I think that's the biggest key as a rookie, because a lot of times when you're a pitcher and teams see you, and we talk all the time, the advanced numbers, second time around the order, third time around the order, fourth time around the order, they have a better chance of doing well against you. And I think the same goes to when you're seeing a pitcher on 2 separate occasions. So, okay, we saw Senga face a team in May and we saw him face a team in July. You feel like the team in July would all of a sudden have a game plan of how to actually face him because they saw him already. But the fact that he's made those improvements and gotten better, I think that's a great sign for how he's going to develop. And I'll tell you what, as far as the AAV for what the Mets got, he's looking like a bargain for the first year. So I hope that, and we'll see if he actually ends up opting out. Because if you have a Cy Young finalist and all of a sudden you're all-star one of those years and you just put together 3 solid years, for the money he's getting paid, he's opting out. So that's going to be another thing to monitor, but we'll focus on year 1. And again, even if he goes on a really, really hot streak, I still don't think it'll be quite enough because, again, it's just a hard award to win for Rookie of the Year. But Cy Young, weird things could happen. You know what I mean? I feel like when it comes to Cy Young, with Blake Snell, he's had the big surge with Gary Sanchez and all that. Other than that, you haven't really had that one guy like Cy Young automatically. Everyone knows it. So maybe a little bit of a battle there. But I think overall, it has been, like you said, Carson, one of the very few bright spots for the Mets this year.
No, I think I have been very, very impressed with Kodai Senga. And I think, the fact that he is already 30 years old, he's already a veteran, he's already been a proven winner over in Japan, that, translating over to this stage, you knew that there was going to be nerves at the start. You knew that there was going to be a transition period for him coming over from Japan. And he has settled in fairly nicely. We pretty much have gotten, at worst, we're guaranteed to see 3 earned runs out there on the mound. That's pretty much been the at worst, the normal for him. We have talked about the biggest concern as for him, which we've talked about with him possibly being a reliever at the beginning, was the control issues. And as we've continued to go down, walking less batters, we've seen him make a lot more competitive pitches. he's not losing his head at all. Cause like we've seen the floodgates come open with tons of Mets pitchers when a few mistakes are made. And there's been a lot of mistakes this year, a la Steven Matz. We've seen it with Tyler McGill before. We've seen it with, when a few mistakes are made and they get into this jam, they get flustered. As for Kodai Senga, as a high leverage pitcher, he's definitely done a Bassett sort of job. Overall, the rookie year, I think that it's worthy to be noticed as a rookie of the year candidate. It's crazy to think about that, he was doing this, being our best starter, as also, in addition, paying $87 million this year to two other veteran pitchers.
And that's the thing I was going to say, too, is that if you say beginning of the year, okay, a Mets pitcher, starting pitcher, is going to be a Cy Young finalist. You would think if you had the first guess, it would be Verlander or Scherzer. And here's Kodai Senga, who's getting paid less than half of what those guys are making. And he's the guy who has the best chance for Cy Young as the finalist. So I think that's a really big thing, because that was one of our big things was, Scherzer and Verlander might get hurt. Can you step up? Can you be an ace? So far, he's been able to answer that.
Yeah, obviously there's still the injury concern that they had at the beginning of if he can go deep into games and stuff like that. But we've definitely seen a good amount of consistency. I mean, the strikeout stuff is there. We already know that. I've just been very impressed with the depth that this guy has, just basically developing a fantastic cutter as well, which is a ridiculous pitch that he has. I don't know where that came from because it was not scouted whatsoever. I mean, this guy's got the kitchen sink at this point, and you know what? If that continues to go with high profile velocity and ridiculous profile that he has and the insane fastball shape that he has and the insane drop that he has on this forkball, this is ace level stuff that you're looking at. And hopefully the Mets don't fucking ruin it. That's what I hope.
The last Met to be a rookie and all-star was DeGrom. So hopefully it's a sign of things to come.
Yeah. I mean, anybody can be the next DeGrom. He's very replaceable.
I mean, think about it. He's got more.
Look at how great the pitching staff has been this year.
Hey, Senga's been great.
We can win with one guy. He's got to pitch every day. It's the fucking 1940. Now, with the aftermath of the Mets' historic trade deadline pivot, a lot of fingers have been pointed with a lot of rumors floating around about the Mets clubhouse in 2023. Now, Mike Puma of the New York Post reported that an anonymous Met tipped that recently traded pitcher Justin Verlander was, quote, a diva and often complained about the Mets analytics department, which he deemed inferior to the one that served him in Houston. Puma also reiterated that former Tigers and Mets teammates Justin Verlander and Max Scherzer often had a strained relationship in Detroit, as the same source said that the two Hall of Fame pitchers worked towards harmony while in the Mets organization, but there was still occasional discord. Verlander was reported very detached from his Mets teammates, didn't add anything to the team's identity, as opposed to Scherzer and Bassett doing so last season. Francisco Lindor also spoke up about the Mets clubhouse chemistry as a whole and why it may have seemed better last year. Lindor cited the benches clearing brawls in Washington, D.C. and in St. Louis really brought the clubhouse together, saying that it made us closer, but we haven't had anything like that this season. I'm not saying we should, but that was part of it in my eyes. Other rumors have surfaced about the lack of leadership in the clubhouse all season after SNY reporter Steve Gelbs described that from day one, something just felt different with this group than last year's group. A lot more disconnected, not as close-knit. It's noticeable, and we haven't talked about it as much because there's just been so much that has gone on this season that has gone wrong. What are the takeaways from this?
I think it's, Mike Puma looking for something to talk about with how bad the team is, deadline's up. Drama is something that it seems like always follows the Mets. It seems that every year there's always a clubhouse drama storyline that the reporters feel the need to talk about. Don't really see it with the other teams, but for the Mets, there's always drama. There's always something going on. Someone doesn't like someone does like someone. And how could it be possible that the manager of the year, the guy who was brought in here to get rid of that, bad chemistry, the bias and Lindor and all that stuff, Buck Showalter's here now. It's going to be great leadership. Everyone's going to be on the same page. Now, all of a sudden, you don't have leadership. How is that possible, Buck Showalter here with manager of the year? How can that happen? I mean, that just seems absolutely impossible. But it's just so obvious that, when you're winning, everybody loves everybody. Smiles, high fives, hugs, slap your ass, whatever you want to do. Everyone gets along when you're winning. But all of a sudden, when you're the worst team in the division, Now we hate each other. Now we're all pissed. Now we're all upset. We're stressed. Nobody likes anybody. No kidding. I mean, good play is contagious. It brings everyone together. And you know what? Francisco Lindor brings up a good point. Where is the fight in this team? With Buck Showalter, it seems to me that last year he was much more of a fighter than he was this year. He seems so just absolutely so okay with what's going on. There was even earlier in the year, before the deadline, where the Mets were just getting robbed by umpires, just brutal calls, brutal decisions made. And Buck would just talk to him, and he's like, okay, yeah, no problem. I mean, like, there's just no fight in him at all. So, and I think that rubs off on the team where, like, if your leader's not fighting, why are you fighting? I mean, I just think that it doesn't portray a good message to everybody else. So, to me, I don't buy too much into this stuff because it's like, what does it matter? Because if Verlander didn't get along with Scherzer and Verlander was such a problem, why is it that the Mets traded Verlander and they're horrible now? So it didn't make a difference. I mean, they were bad with him. They were bad without him. So to me, this is all just extra stuff. This is your usual nothing to talk about, make up something to write about. So, all this anonymous this, Tigers, Mets, that, like, come on.
Who's the anonymous Met, though? I do want to know who it is.
Drew Smith.
No, it's Jeff McNeil.
But again, you're still seeing it's the same leaders. A fat tub of lard. And Lindor, who's, again, has definitely grown as a leader in front of a camera. You've seen him grow as a person, when at least in front of the camera. We still, again, we don't see behind those doors. There's no alpha. Again, like we've said it all the time, there is no alpha on this team. Sure as hell ain't our old-ass, sleepy-ass manager, that's for damn sure. And like Frank said, this is the manager of the year, and, all feisty Buck Showalter. Now he's just sitting on his ass, Luis Rojas impressed, and just like, oh, somebody gets hit. And then he has the balls to say, I think, about when somebody got hit, about like, you guys continuing to get hit, you need to stand up for your guys. And he goes, oh, we don't do that anymore. That's not right. Just two wrongs don't make a right. I think it just shows, again, this team is soft, and there is no, and we would have thought Max Scherzer, psychopath, that would have worked, him being the alpha, but hell, he's a little bitch too. So JV's gone and they're still sucking. They're not going to change the manager. So that voice isn't going to change. It's still going to be this old man next year. It looks to be. It's still going to be the same core, same group of guys with minor adjustment, but nobody that's going to step into that locker room and say something. So if there is an issue, it's going to continue in the next year with no change in sight because this is the team. And if it's a team issue, I've been trolling to say it. Somebody's got to go. Easiest got to go is the guy that's a free agent after next year. I'm not saying it. I want it to happen, but something's got to change. And nobody's taking that Lindor deal on. Nobody's probably taking the McNeil deal on. You're not going to trade Nemo. So somebody's got to go. The easiest go is the hardest guy to replace, but he's the easiest way to shake the room up.
We definitely got a breath of fresh air last year as to what this clubhouse kind of looked like. We saw a lot of the veteran pieces that come in kind of defending the core that was here from the beginning. And it kind of just clicked fairly well. And, there was a lot of things to be angry about from their opponents of being hit a lot and just chesting up to a lot of opponents. Now that kind of fizzled out towards the end of the year. There wasn't much fight towards the end. They looked like a baseball team last year at the beginning of the year defending their teammates. We have seen tons of times, and we all know with how top heavy this lineup is, we all know that Pete Alonso is not going to get that many pitches inside of the strike zone. And technically, the best way to get him probably is the high end and fastball. So he is going to be pitched in a lot, and he gets hit a lot. Every single time when this guy gets hit this year, all I've seen, nobody comes out of the dugout to defend him. This is the guy that you're nothing without, right? If he doesn't hit, no one else is hitting. No one's going to defend him whatsoever. And we saw it a few times, but for some reason, nobody does it now. Nobody knows how to send a message whatsoever. They're all just sitting down and taking it. That's literally it. Not even, there's been tons of instances where Lindor has gotten hit, where Alonso's gotten hit in dangerous body areas that could put them on the injured list. And it did put Pete on the injured list and derail his home run pace season. And you look at the Mets dugout behind him as he's sitting on the ground. No one gets up. No one moves. Everyone's just staring at him. And that's like how I see it in this clubhouse. It's just every man for himself. That's literally how it's looked all season. And there's a reason for that. You have so many veterans here. You can't find a leader. Everybody does their own thing, right? You don't see Justin Verlander going up to Starling Marte and saying, oh, you should be doing that. Starling Marte is a veteran as well. So you don't have veterans telling veterans what to do. That's another reason of bringing in a lot of older pieces to this team. They made an older team older, and that's what you looked at. Now, as for Verlander and Scherzer, again, they should have known from the beginning that these guys have had a history of disagreeing with each other, of being these fierce competitors that get in each other's head and get in front. Like, they should have been aware of this, right? They should have been aware of a lot of things that they brought in this season. I personally am not surprised. I haven't been surprised at many things that have happened this season. I'm not surprised that from, when Steve Gels said from day one that it felt different. Because whether you want to talk about DeGrom hating New York or whatever you want to talk about of him wanting to be out of here, I don't remember him when the team was losing, making such a huge stink about it. Whether Lindor thinks it's a lot different, it definitely is a lot different because it shows on the field. Whether you thought the play was sustainable or not, this team's dead. They're dead in the water. They are not doing anything. The season is done. First time that they were below 500, they never stopped playing below 500 baseball. So I would not be surprised if there were clubhouse issues that we do not know about. Because we had these clubhouse issues in 2021. Let's not forget that whole debacle with Lindor and McNeil as well, going after each other. And it didn't translate whatsoever. There was no leadership. Now you have a bunch of guys who could be leaders on a team. You have absolutely no flow whatsoever. Like, it's just a top-heavy veteran roster. Everybody does their own thing. There's no continuity whatsoever. And that's the problem with this team. They're old, they're outdated, and those old guys will continue to get grumpy. All right, so now we get to a segment that's everyone's favorite segment, but it's going to be a lot harder now because of how this team has been performing. Studs and duds. One player that has played good recently, one has played horrible, that we want to shit on, that we want to give flowers to. Let's start with studs, the harder one.
Yeah, I mean, since it's been a while since I've been on here, since we've done a podcast, I'm going to go with a guy who's been doing okay for a little bit now, and that's Jose Quintana. He's a guy that what I like about him, nothing amazing. He's not giving you 7 scores innings, 8 scores innings, but he's doing what he's supposed to do as a guy who's supposed to be a number 4, keep you in the game. Exactly. 5 innings, 6 innings, 3-run ball. And the thing I love the most about Jose Quintana, I hope I didn't jinx it, 0 home runs allowed this year. He allowed 1 last year, and he has like this massive streak going on right now of keeping the ball in the ballpark, which is, to me, the most important thing as a pitcher. Keep the ball in the ballpark. That's how you stay in games. Because with a team like the Atlanta Braves and a lot of the other elite teams, that's how they get their offense, the long ball. So if you can keep those guys in the ballpark and make them beat you, station to station, that's the way to get it done. So Quintana's been able to keep that, despite the scares that he had this year, the procedure, all that, still keeping that streak going and staying in games, doing what he was paid to do, technically what we projected out of him, despite what he'd been through. I think that's really encouraging. So we'll see what happens next year, but I hope that he keeps that mentality of, keep the team in the game, low 4, he's a guy, he's like your 4 or 5 or whatever. He does exactly what he needs to do in that spot. So I definitely want to give him props.
The no home runs, that's just a sign of great command. I love that because we have so many guys on this team who have the worst command I have ever seen in my life.
I mean, I haven't watched the game since the Kansas City trip, and I was going to do this last week if we had our episode of base it on who when I was up in Kansas City, because I haven't watched a goddamn game in like 2 weeks. So the stud of the week, which would have been last week, because he made my week last week, it's Brandon Nimmo. Just because he's the only guy on his fucking team that's not an asshole. This whole team can suck a dick. They all can just fuck off.
Bad chemistry. No one's getting
bad
along
chemistry. Everybody's been
Nimmo's
a dick.
been one of the worst hitters in the lineup. Recently, but okay. I waited. I've been waiting for the consistency to be somewhat shown since he got called back up from AAA. Let's give it to David Peterson. All right. Do I think that overall he's a great pitcher? No. Has he been still stressful to watch overall? Yes. But I will say one thing, that since he started to be shortened a little bit with some of the starts that he's had, and just coming out of the bullpen, he definitely looks more relaxed as a pitcher. And I really do like that, of where he can actually focus and he doesn't let it just, he loses his head. Now, obviously, these games, they don't obviously count, and maybe the pressure is on, but there is a little bit pressure on guys like Peterson, guys like McGill, to see what they do in the future, because we don't know what the long-term focus of the rotation is going to be. I don't think he would be a fantastic reliever. I don't think he's a good starter, but if he can calm himself down, he's got a better chance than what we usually see.
Fucking Danny Mendick. 7 runs, man. I mean, you're throwing ephuses, but damn, 7 runs?
Oh, yeah, he pitched.
So, yeah, Danny Mendick, I just saw literally, I didn't watch, again, I literally click on Twitter. It said, Danny Mendick gives him 7 runs. Like, what the fuck did I miss?
I mean, this guy, I don't know if we have a tally on who's been our duds, but for me, this has got to be the guy I've chosen the most. I'm choosing him again. Drew freaking Smith. I mean, the man, still here, still stinks, and the reason why he's my dud is because I'm afraid he's going to be here next year. He won't go away. The man is on a 15-year contract, and I just want it to end already. I'm just so sick of it. I can't remember the time when a pitcher was just so bad and stayed on a team for so long. Like, can't trust him at all.
It's actually crazy with the amount of relievers who have come and gone, and he's just still here.
Yes.
Like, he's still actually with this
he's
team.
He's one of the longest tenured Mets. Like, that's crazy.
That's awful. That is awful. Like, behind Nimmo, is he like the longest tenured Met at this point?
Yeah, he is.
Oh my
right
God.
before McNeil, yeah.
All right. Well, I guess welcome to Freaky Friday. I had Peterson in the studs. The dud is Tyler McGill. Let me just say that I'm not mad with the way that he's pitching. I think he's come closer to the form that was the beginning of last year, but I'm starting to believe that this guy cannot handle a starter's workload. I would love for him to have his best stuff on the mound because I like strikeout dominant pitchers. But after that second and third inning are good. And then just right after that, I understand wanting to have a guy go distance, but with the Mets having as many holes in their bullpen as they do for next year, I'm fine. If he needs to be one of these relievers who throws hard, has a harder slider, maybe add a cutter, please fucking add a cutter. All I can say is if he needs to do that, so be it. I'm fine with that. If he can bring his best stuff, his best strikeout stuff, which he has shown in those first 2-3 innings against the Orioles and Braves, which it looks like he looks a lot better, but then like the wheels just completely fall off in the 4th and the 5th. And I mean, I don't even think he's gotten to the 6th. I mean, this is just coming from 2 appearances that we've seen, but like we saw him at his best when he was throwing as hard as he was. The wheels started to fall off in the 5th, 6th inning. I mean, at this point, I don't think that this guy can handle a starter's workload. And to be honest, I'm okay with that at this point, because if we have Tyler McGill at his best, if he's coming out of the bullpen, he's coming out of the bullpen. Not the Tyler McGill from last year that came back from injury out of the bullpen. That dude was just wincing and throwing 94 miles an hour. If this Tyler McGill throwing 97 miles an hour to 98 to 99 with a harder slider, I'm definitely okay with him coming out of the bullpen, because we do need bullpen arms, and he's here under team control for a while. I like the way he's pitching. It's just I don't think that he is able to have a starter's workload at this point, throwing as hard as he is.
His brother is a reliever, so I mean, maybe it's something that runs in the family. And I think that there still is some value to be had if he does become a very good reliever, because he could be a guy where you use him in middle relief, where he's a guy that, your starter only gives you 5. Let's say Quintana gives you 5 innings, 2-run ball. McGill comes in, gives you 6, 7. All of a sudden, now you got your back end guys, Diaz, Rayleigh, however you want to slice it, or even as an opener too, where you have McGill give you innings 1, 2, and then you could bring in someone else. So he can still do some things for you, even if he can only give you 2 to 3 innings at a burst, but he still can be an effective piece for you. So, like you said, Carson, something that it's like you have to put your players in the best positions to succeed. So if this is what you have to do to make him a quality player, then you do it. Like, if he's just not going to be a starter, he's not going to be a starter. You can't force it. So you just got to utilize his strengths.
This week's rapid fire stories: Mets outfielder Brandon Nimmo will be playing left field for the rest of 2023 due to a left quad strain that has been lingering for the past 2 weeks. Nimmo says that he is currently at 85% capacity and has no discomfort while swinging the bat. After saving the Mets bullpen a few nights ago, the Mets have designated Jimmy Yacobonis for assignment as the corresponding move for right-handed pitcher Denyi Reyes to make a start. This is now the second time Yacobonis has been DFA'd this year by the Mets after signing a minor league deal over the offseason. The Mets have DFA'd outfielder Abraham Almonte and have activated Tim LeCastro off of the 60-day injured list. LeCastro returns to the Mets active roster for the first time since late April after undergoing thumb surgery. The Mets have released right-handed pitcher Steven Ridings, among 3 other minor leaguers. Dylan Bundy and former Mets draft picks Quinn Brody and Tanner Murphy were released as well. Ridings was claimed off of waivers during the offseason from the Yankees, spending most of his season on the injured list. Mets reliever Jeff Brigham was ejected from Wednesday night's Syracuse Mets game for sticky substances. Brigham will now serve a 10-game suspension, becoming the 3rd Syracuse pitcher to be ejected this year for the same offense. Post the Mets MLB trade deadline, Pipeline has now ranked 5 Mets prospects in their top 100, featuring Luis Angel Acuna at 40, Drew Gilbert at 56, Jet Williams at 82, Ronnie Mauricio at 92, and Kevin Parada at 95. Parting words for episode number 26. I don't even have a number off the top of my head. Is it Kevin Plawecki?
Nobody's watching the games anymore. So, I mean, I'm watching Syracuse and Binghamton. I'm not watching this dog pile anymore. Go get, re-sign Dylan Bundy, have him in the rotation. Just give me all the cookie throwers. Like, I lose everything. I roll them.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with Andrew. I just make it watchable. That's why I really like to see a guy like Mauricio get called up and make sure Vientos is playing full time, because even if the Mets are losing, at least give us something to be excited about, evaluate, try to figure out some things for next year. Because right now, when you're just getting beat 21-0 and things like that, and seeing the same bums out there, and the things that, like, the Aruz, the Ortega, like, those aren't young pieces that are going to be part of the team next year. At least they better not be. So it's like, I would just rather see like a true, like, let the young guys play and see what happens. Like, guys who are actually going to be maybe contributors for you and see what they got. Because right now, it's just like, what's the point? It's just like 3 hours of pain, of misery.
There's 45 games left, 44 games left, and I've begun the countdown. I'm ready for this season to end. I'm ready to get to the off season. Thrown in the towel. So have I. I probably will still be watching a little bit of these games. As for some certain players, I want to see Senga for the rest of the year. At this point, as much as I miss him, please don't bring back Edwin Diaz. Just don't do it. Thanks. I just rest him for the rest of the season. It's very understandable to be angry with the whole situation, but this was the position they kind of went into. It was smart for them to not buy. It's not just basically the examples of other teams buying and in the same position as the Mets, but there was absolutely no reason when the team was going in the trajectory that it was going. So other than that, we'll see you guys next week for episode number 27. We're going to have more consistent podcasts, obviously, but we just needed to take a break in the middle of that. Also some videos throughout the week, including me and Andrew's top 10 Mets prospects, which we have been putting off, but we will have that out on the YouTube channel for those of you listening as well. Let's go Mets, even though there's not really much to go about right now. A lot of pain for the next month and a half.